Hey Bible lovers, I'm Tim Nichols, and I'm here bringing you your Nichols Worth, and today we're going to talk about single column versus double column, some of the advantages and disadvantages of each layout. I'm going to give you a few examples to kind of show you what you should look for, maybe where the references should be placed, and how this may work best for you. So let's first start off with double column. I'm going to be using full-size Bibles for this video. I know there are compacts and different options when it comes to single column and double column. I'm pretty much a large print guy, but first off, a great option for anyone is just a straight double column. And this gives you the large print option. There's no references. There's no notes on the bottom. This happens to be the LSB 2-column verse-by-verse layout. Now, I actually prefer a paragraph layout, but this is also very nice. Whenever you have a double column with the verse-by-verse, it still gives you plenty of verses per page, and it works really well for me. Another option that's a really standard classic option that a lot of people like is the double column, and it has your references in the middle and your notes on the bottom. Now this is really nice because it keeps those notes and references separate, but there is sometimes a little problem, especially like the NASB that has a lot of notes and references, is when you get to a spot where there is a bunch of references and notes. For example, right here. You can see that all those references are filled up, but then because there's so many, it spills over into the corner and it gets those columns off for me. Now for some people, they don't like this in the reading experience because you feel like you can't go from here to here because you have this in the way. That doesn't bother me, probably because this is what I'm used to. Another example of a center column is this NKJV verse by verse. And this one has the notes and references all together. This obviously isn't going to be the full suite of references, so you're not going to have that problem with them spilling over. I really like this layout. Now another option, this is my least favorite, is with a double column large print, and then you have the references on the corner and the notes on the bottom. While I do appreciate that they are separated, those corner references aren't really useful for me. Number one, they're very small. And number two, they're really hard to kind of discover, okay, where does this one fit with this one? And this is a difficult format to use. I love the layout. Love the text, love the paragraph format, really like the nice bold verse numbers. So all of this is really working for me, but I'd just rather have these on the bottom. Now another option for your double column, now this is kind of interesting, is to put the references on the end of each verse. And this is going to be very disruptive from a reading standpoint, but from a referencing standpoint, you know exactly where your references are. You're not having to fish them out from the middle column or from the bottom. So this works really well. Not necessarily in a reading format, but if you're studying and wanting to utilize those references, then of course you have your notes on the bottom. Then one more format. This, in my opinion, is the winner. It is a little bit difficult to separate the notes from the references, but it gives you those nice wide columns in your double column layout, and then it gives you all your notes and references on the bottom so they're out of the way of the reading experience. This is the best of both worlds. And then you can connect easily those verses to their references or to their notes using the subscripts, using the numbering systems, and it just really works out well. So the New King James large print thin line really gets it right, in my opinion, from a layout standpoint. Very close is the Quintel. The only thing that throws the Quintel off for me is they put the notes on the corner, and again, it throws those columns off. I want my columns to be even. Now let's move real quickly into some single column formats that are really nice, that I think are useful for you, and different placement for references that may or may not suit your desires. This is the New King James Shepherd from Humble Lamb, and they have the references on the outside column, notes on the bottom. Now, you're going to have this option in like the NASB from Lockman, and the New King James and the NIV have options with this with Thomas Nelson and Zondervan. This is a very desirable option because it gives you those big wide columns. It allows you to get that text a bit out of the gutter, and then you utilize that margin space for the references, which is one of the big advantages of having a Bible that's in single column format, is because when you don't have references, look how wide those columns are, and then look how wide of a margin space you get. The text is out of the gutter. This is the ESV verse by verse preaching Bible put out by Crossway. This is my least favorite option of any layout. Whenever a page is fully verse by verse, I just don't feel that you have enough verses per page. And for me, it's a struggle to find my verses. I also find this to be a problem even in the double column format because it disrupts my reading experience. I want that paragraph, even in a preaching context, I want that paragraph layout, which is what makes this one nice. This is the older preaching Bible from Crossway in the ESV, and you can see those paragraphs. It's a really nice reading format, just beautifully laid out. There are no references in this one, but there are some notes on the bottom, very limited. This is just designed strictly to be utilized from a reading and preaching standpoint. Big, nice, large font, plenty of space, plenty of letting space between the lines. Everything is just good with this. So if I'm going to do a single column, this is my layout of choice. And there are several that are like this. There's one in the CSB. There's even a King James from Holman. So these are really nice. Then another great option is to have the margins. This is your reader's format. It has your verses within the text, but in the margins you have your subtitles there. And what this does is it doesn't break up your reading experience. It reads just like a book. So you're reading and it just goes straight down. Now, it does take up some margin space, especially when there's several topics like this. So that can be frustrating to some people, but from a reading standpoint, this is the ESV legacy. This is outstanding. Another option is your single column verse by verse layout. It offers those wide columns and it offers the wide margins, and then they put the notes and references on the bottom. This is the Stridon layout. This is actually the Lockman edition. While I do like the references and the notes on the bottom being separated, again, my problem here is that verse by verse single column layout. I feel like you just don't get enough verses on the page. So now just a couple more options. If you want to check this out, is you have, this is the Traveris. Now there are several reader formats like this where they don't really emphasize the chapters, they don't really emphasize the verses, they just have it reading. The Traveris, what's nice about it is they have the chapters and verses all on the outside column. It doesn't disrupt your reading experience. The ESV, and there are several other translations that offer a reader's version that is either versified similar to this, or they don't have any verses or chapters at all and you read it just like a book. This is a really nice option. And then finally, this is the one that's been taking everyone by storm, and that is the inside column reference. They have this available in the LSB, and they also have this available in the ESV, but that one's expensive from Allen, but they do have a personal size in the ESV that's a little more compact that has this option. But this, in my opinion, the best of all worlds. You have the inside column references, the bottom notes, and you have your single column text here. Your poetic stanzas, of course, are going to be in verse by verse. And then this is in paragraph format. It gives you those nice wide margins. This is really, if you're going for a single column and you want references and notes, this is the layout to go with. I love it in the LSB. I love it in the ESV. And it just, look how it just pulls that right outside of the gutter. Beautiful reading experience, all your references and notes, just absolutely outstanding. So, what do you prefer? Do you like a double column, verse by verse, double column paragraph, single column, verse by verse, or single column paragraph? And where do you like your references? Let me know in the comments. God bless you. Keep calm. Jesus on. This is your Nicholsworth.